Hey guys, have you ever heard of the phrase form over function? Do you know what that means? It is when somebody places an aesthetic value on something over the actual functionality of that. In other words, they're more concerned about how it looks than how it works. We, as custom home builders, get this from time to time. And there was something in this house, it didn't happen in this house, it's just something that as I walked by, I thought about because it has happened many times to me over the years, which is people don't like to see thermostats in certain locations sometimes. And by thermostat, I'm talking about HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Talked about that in this house as it's in the rough-in phase and that's all been put in. So behind me here, there is a low voltage wire. Had many a customer say, "What is this?" Looks like a little phone cable coming down and the guys put a little cross-member stud on here and poke it through. That's because that is running back to the air handlers that are upstairs. And the thermostat, as we know, is kind of the brain of the unit. It is gauging the temperature in the area. It is keeping the AC or the heat within the set point that you've put it at. Hey, I want my house at 75 and it's summer, that air conditioning is going to keep the house at 75. These days, they're Wi-Fi. We put in the touchscreen versions. They're Wi-Fi. They're programmable. You've got apps on your phone. Technology is amazing when it comes to some of this stuff. But why do the HVAC companies put them where they put them? Because something I've had happen before is a customer walks in, especially and understandably, when these are actually more in a living room area or kind of a great room area. And there are times when they will end up in that scenario because there aren't good hallways for them to put them in. Why do they put them in hallways? Why would they put them in a main room? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about why thermostat placement is what it is, why they put it where it goes, and maybe this will help you because they are trying to put function first. They want your system to operate properly. So stay tuned as some of the things or some of the reasons that we put thermostats where we put them. So one of the reasons you will often see thermostats placed in central hallways of houses and areas like that is you are trying to put it in an area where it is not going to receive abnormal readings or loads, we'll call it. Let's imagine that this thermostat, well, let's back up. This thermostat is in basically a hallway, close to the kitchen, but it's a hallway. It is in an area where effectively we don't have windows. We certainly don't have direct sunlight coming onto it, things like that. Imagine if this thermostat were sitting in a spot where it's right across from a window. Maybe it's a window that's facing west and there is a ton of UV coming through that window at a certain time of the day. It's going to heat up the thermostat. It's going to give that thermometer in the thermostat, an abnormal reading because it's not really that temperature in the house per se, but right where that sun's coming through, it is warmer. And therefore it's going to cause the system to think it's hotter, to run more, may make other parts of the house cooler than they need to be. So the goal with placement is to have them, number one, in an area where they are just not going to receive any kind of abnormal temperature influences. So across from a window, close to a fireplace, these kind of things where we have something that's putting off heat or cooling that would affect the thermostat. So that's one of the main reasons you're going to find them in an area like a hallway. Another reason a location like a hallway can be better for a thermostat, more the function aspect of it, is it will also often be an area where there is what we call a return air. So I'm going to do one of my look at the ceilings with me still in the picture. Right above me, that kind of blue plastic you see, is a return air. A return air is just simply the duct that is sucking air back to the air handler, which then blows through it, gets cooled down if it's air conditioning running, and then put back out what we call the supply vents, the vents that are in the bedrooms and things like that are dumping air back into the room. The return air, and there may be multiple return airs even on one air handler, but the concept is the air is all being pulled back to this spot and it's blended air. So undoubtedly in a house, you are never going to have the exact same temperature in every room, every spot. If you were to go around and put little digital thermostats everywhere or thermometers, you'd see different temperatures. That's always going to be the case with windows and doors that leak a little bit and things like that. But the goal of the thermostat here is to be reading the blended kind of average temperature. And so when the AC unit's on or the heating unit's on, this return air is pulling air back. So it is coming from multiple areas of the house. It's kind of blended as it comes in here and runs past the thermostat. So the thermostat is getting more of an average or blended reading of the air that's coming back to the air handler. And that's a better way to kind of regulate what we want the temperature to be. This kind of goes along with the blended air concept. But again, we also want these in a neutral location. So imagine I'm in this house. I'm just going to turn around here so you can see behind me. Front bedroom, set of windows right there. Bedroom's not that big. If you went and put a thermostat in the bedroom that was running a lot of the rest of the house, this room's probably going to run hotter in the summer, maybe colder in the winter. Windows, no matter how good they are not the best insulators in the world. So especially with sun coming through them, even though we have low E tint and all these kind of things on them, you will feel, if you walked in front of a window with sun shining through, it'll feel warmer, right? So that load that's going on that thermostat is not what the rest of the house is actually receiving. So if we put thermostats in weird spots like rooms that get hot or cold, it is not going to be giving the thermostat a good reading, and therefore the temperature that the rest of the house is getting when this thing's on is not going to be what it really needs to be, because the room it was put in has an abnormal temperature, so to speak. Now, what happens when somebody wants to move one of these? I've encountered this many a time. I've had situations, and sometimes it's a house that maybe has very little hallway. Those do exist, and the nature of the situation is, hey, we're in a big great room and maybe that thermostat needed to be over here or someplace that made more sense. But the customer didn't like seeing it. So I've had plenty of customers want to move thermostats. What the HVAC companies will usually tell you is they will work with us to a point, but if we have a customer demanding a certain location that the HVAC company says that is not where that thermostat needs to be, they will sometimes disclaim their kind of performance warranty of the thing, keeping the right type of temperature that you want because of the location you have put it in. So when we talk about this form over function thing, for the most part, I'd tell people don't let that be the case. Don't let the fact that you don't want to see a thermostat here mean that you put it somewhere else where now it's not going to function properly. Always form over function. Now, I have had these situations where they do have to be in main rooms, and there are some different things we can do. They do have sensors, and sometimes these are a good idea depending on the house design anyways, where you can have a few sensors that are taking an average temperature, not just where the thermostat's at, but maybe there's another sensor somewhere else, maybe there's two of them, and they're taking the average temperature of all three areas. I've even had one case where they didn't want the thermostat in the living room area, but that was where we needed it to be for the best, all these things I've talked about, location for the type of air. We went and did a sensor in that location and actually moved the thermostat to a different location. So the bulky thermostat that's on the wall was gone. There was just some little sensor that, if I remember correctly, we did something with trim or something that kind of hit it. And so it was taking the temperature where we wanted it to take the temperature, but the actual control box, the thermostat itself, was in a different location where they didn't have to look at it. What about upstairs rooms? I've done some videos on this, how this was going to be a one-story home, and then the homeowner wanted to finish a bunch of space upstairs. And I talk about how we actually are using a damper system and sharing one of the systems to heat and cool this upstairs. But should it have its own thermostat? Yes. Don't ever try to use a downstairs thermostat to cool an upstairs area. You just are not going to get the right type of temperatures that you need up here. So, as I talked about in the other video, this has its own thermostat. It has dampers that can send more or less air up here if you want it colder or warmer, versus the other zone that unit's running. But hey, upstairs gets hot. It's amazing in these homes when, and today, let me digress. For anybody who wants to move to Texas, Texas is awesome, but it's September 4th and it is supposed to be 102 today. Then this weekend it's going to be a high of like 81. So go figure, last gasp of summer. But I was in here the other day, Downstairs, it didn't feel bad. Little breeze going through the home. I walked up here, man, it must have been 20 degrees warmer. So obviously when a home is insulated and all that, it's not going to be as extreme as it is now, but obviously hot air rises. The second floor is always going to be warmer, so you definitely want a thermostat on your second floor if you do something like this. You know, what I call true two-story homes, they're almost always going to have either a second system or a second thermostat upstairs with dampers. But sometimes when people do these kind of one-story bonus room type finishes, they'll just go, just connect it to the current AC system and we'll just use the downstairs thermostat. Maybe you have a manual damper you can kind of set to dump a certain amount of air up here, but it's not as good as having an actual thermostat because it is going to run warmer up here, and so you want to be able to adjust the air accordingly. So I know I've been nerding out a lot lately on construction related stuff. This house has just been a good one to go through as we're doing different phases and talk about things. But yeah, just wanted to talk about thermostats and HVAC and how that works. I hope this video was educational for you guys. I'll see you in the next one.